The views and opinions expressed on any program are those of the producers and/or the persons appearing on the program and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of FRC Media, Bristol Community College, or the City of Fall River.
Wednesday, July 26th, and I would like to welcome everyone back to the second show of Community Chat with Collin. The last episode was a little more introductory. We talked about what the show is going to be about, what our plans and goals are, who I am, what I've done. And this second show is going to be a lot more fruitful. I'm glad to be joined by my guest, Mr. Ken Fiola, who spent many years in the city doing a lot of public service for us, and is the executive vice president of the Fall River Economic Office of Economic Development, otherwise known as FROED. And thank you for coming on the show today.
My pleasure, Collin. It's a pleasure to be here, especially on your second show. I'm always happy to see people your age, getting involved in civic responsibility and projects. And I look forward to being on your show and answering any questions you may have.
Thank you. Yep, that's what we're here for. And just begin. How about you just tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So I've been a lifelong resident of the City of Fall River.
Okay.
I'm a Durfee High School graduate, class of 1977.
Oh, okay.
Married my high school sweetheart, Carol Fiola, who's a state rep. We've been married for over 30 years, and we have two lovely girls, Alex and Lauren, 27 and 25. Both graduates of Durfee High School as well, both living in the city right now. So we've made a conscious decision to remain here within the community, to try to better the community in terms of quality of life, building a community that's a well-balanced community, and trying to make a difference so that people such as yourself and other people that will be coming behind you, as well as our senior citizens, have a place that they can call home and hopefully be proud of the home in which they live in and the community in which they live in.
Well, that's good. That's what I sort of want to do too. I want to stay in the community, stay involved, help out others, maybe one day run for a political office and just help our city make it better. And my whole family went to Durfee, a few of my uncles went to Diamond, but majority of my family went to Durfee. I was the first person in my family to go to Connolly, so I guess there's a new step for everything, right?
Well, for the record, I did go to Connolly for 1 year. I went to ninth grade at Connolly.
Oh, okay. So you should, that was just ninth grade, 3 years.
That's right. So.
Well, I know you're a busy person. What did you do this week?
So there's always a lot of stuff going on. So, right now the office is primarily engaged in doing a lot of small business lending to help facilitate job creation and job retention. We're also working with the Redevelopment Authority on a myriad of waterfront projects, such as the improvements to the city pier, the realignment of Route 79 North, 2 urban renewal plans that are taking place both on the waterfront as well as the downtown, development of the balance of the technology park, where we have Amazon located currently. So there's a whole host of things that are going on. So day to day, week to week, hour to hour, we're doing a whole bunch of different things on a lot of different fronts. So, and it's, the nice thing about this job is you never do the same thing 2 days in a row. Right. You're constantly addressing various projects, loans, meeting with clients, meeting with businesses, and trying to get the word out that Fall River is a good place to invest, to have a business, to grow your business, to locate your business. And I think we've come a long way over the last, I've been with the office since 1986.
Wow.
So I've seen a lot of changes in the 30 years or so. I remember in the early 90s where, we had close to 19,000 manufacturing jobs.
Right.
Today, because of national trade policy, we have less than 4,000 manufacturing jobs. So there's been a big shift in the employment picture within the community.
Right.
And so we've spent the last 20, 25 years or so to try to better diversify this economy, not have an overdependence on one particular sector, so that if there is a downturn in the economy, we're better positioned to address and ride out that economic downturn.
Right. So you've been with FROED for 36 years?
30 years.
30 years?
Well, 31 now, since 1986, yep.
Okay. And that is the only job you have right as of now?
Yeah, that's what my profession is. I'm a lawyer by trade as well.
That's good.
But I prefer to do economic development work. Like we said earlier, my wife and I made a conscious choice to live here, raise our family here, and try to improve things and make a difference. It would be easy for us to move elsewhere, but this is our home, this is where our family is, and this is where our commitment lies.
Well, that is really great. And when you're speaking about changes, I know there's been a lot happen over these few months to change the relationship FROED has with Fall River. And could you maybe explain it? You probably explained this many times, but can you explain it for our viewers through your viewpoint, what happened over these few years with the administration and the city?
We really don't want to get into the specifics, but let me step back. So, the Office of Economic Development is actually a private nonprofit entity. So we are not part of city or state government. We do not receive any city funds. We don't receive any state funds for our office directly. What we do and what we historically have received is money from the federal government via the Community Development Block Grant.
Okay.
So the office was formed in 1978 as a private nonprofit entity. And the reason it was a private nonprofit entity was so that it would not have the same feel, touch, or texture of a city organization. In my office, on staff, we have 2 attorneys, we have a CPA, we have, we have people with advanced degrees, and they work very hard to fulfill an agenda that's set forth by the board of directors. The beauty of an office such as ours is that we transcend mayoral administrations.
Right,
because if nothing else, one thing I think is becoming more and more clear is that economic development and public sector development takes a long time to emerge.
Right, you need to negotiate with the businesses. It's a long process.
It's a long process. So there are times where, you have to go through permitting process. There's times where you have to put in the necessary infrastructure to accommodate development. There's times where you have to negotiate with the businesses. There are times where you have to create plans and planning documents and implement those plans. And so the beauty of the office is that we've carried forth this agenda during the course of this period, despite who was the mayor or whoever was in the mayor's seat.
Right.
The mayor serves as the chairman of our board, but the mayor only has 1 vote on the board. The board also is comprised of the superintendent of schools, the chairman of the Chamber of Commerce, the chairman of the WIB board. We have representation from BCC, we have representation from UMass, and then we also have the balance of the board is the general business community, both men and women. That board itself sets the direction for the agenda for the office. And many times, if not 99% of the times, it's done in concert with whoever the mayor is. But I'll give you a perfect example. If you look at the Amazon project, which we recently completed, that project actually straddled 3 different mayoral administrations.
Yeah, I remember that.
It started under the Flanagan administration. Right. It continued forward under the Sutter administration and concluded during the current administration. Right. If you would have had turmoil from an economic development standpoint, if, for instance, you had a city office of economic development, it wouldn't be uncommon for every time that the mayor would come in,
a new mayor, right.
A new mayor would replace the head.
You would have different people, you would have their people, and their people may not be qualified.
Well, sometimes they may not be qualified, but other times they may not be able to have the institutional knowledge to keep the projects moving forward.
Right, yeah, that too.
And so the beauty of the office is that we didn't lose a beat in moving this thing forward, despite what had been a very tumultuous period within the city, right? So you had recall efforts, you had all kinds of shenanigans, alleged shenanigans taking place along the waterfront. You had one mayor that came in and served for 1 year, then he was voted out. You had a new mayor come in.
We had a lot of distractions.
A lot of distractions, yet we were able to keep that Amazon project moving in the right direction.
Kudos for you for
getting it done.
for giving appropriate leadership to.
Right, and like I said, it's not about kudos. It's not about me. It's not about kudos. It's about getting the job done.
Right.
I could care less about the credit, to be honest with you. I know that sounds self-serving, but it's true. Whoever's in the office deserves the credit because they're the mayor at that time, even though they may not have a lot to do with the project, but they're sitting the mayor, they deserve some of the credit. So
it's a group effort.
It's a group effort, and many different people, and many volunteers on my board who also went along for that journey and provided insight and guidance. And I don't know all the answers. So there may be issues that pertain to real estate or insurance or other things where, or banking, where I'll rely upon some of my board members for guidance and advice. What do you think about this? What do you think about that? So, and then there's sometimes, like with the situation with Amazon, where I have to sign a non-disclosure agreement, and I can't talk to anybody about things.
Yeah.
Right. So, now we're in a situation where the current administration would like to move things in a different direction. That's their prerogative to do so. Clearly, I think the model that is currently in place, I think works best. I think that's
showing.
I think there's tangible results. Over the course of years, I could rattle off dozens of projects that we've done that I think have been successful. We don't always bat 100%. Not everybody does. There's also, we've chased some big projects that didn't come to fruition, but we're in the running. We've done, we've issued more than $70 million in low-interest loans to Fall River businesses that have helped create and retain close to 15,000 jobs. We've helped just about every company in the industrial park, either by siting them there or helping them expand, or just addressing some of their day-to-day issues. We did the Meditech project down at the old Kerr Mill. We did the ATMC project. We've done, we've helped with the hospital expansion. So there's a whole litany of things we've done. And I think the reason why we're able to do these things is because we're a private nonprofit. So if you had a business and you were talking to me about expanding, that conversation is confidential. Right. So I'm not taking what you're telling me and telling your competitor. I'm not taking what you're telling me and getting into the details with elected officials. So
process can run more smooth.
Right. So that way you build up a confidence factor in me. When you borrow money from my office, you're sharing with me 3 years of your personal tax returns, 3 years of your corporate tax returns. Now that information stays confidential with me and my finance committee, because clearly that's not information that you'd want to have circulating in the public.
Right.
And so that's the advantage of us being private. Once you become public, then that information is subject to a Freedom of Information Act request, and it has a greater likelihood of that information becoming public. And then that would probably be a detriment to you as a business person to come to me. If you knew your personal tax returns were going to become public, or your corporate tax returns were going to become public, you wouldn't want to think about borrowing money from us.
Economic place, right?
And we lend out money at a lower interest rate than the bank. So it's good for businesses to borrow our money, and we're designed to help businesses in that regard. So, these are some of the things that I think are important to maintain the integrity of the office moving forward. But it's like anything else, everything is subject to interpretation. That's my interpretation. Others have different interpretations. But the one thing I can point to is a track record of results.
That's good. Another thing, another project FROED has worked on. I'm not really sure if this was FROED. I don't really know, so that's why I'm going to ask.
Sure.
What was FROED's role in bringing in Market Basket and in the new Harbor Mall?
Well, so we were that actually started A little, actually, the majority of that work was, all of that work primarily was under the Sutter administration.
Right.
Okay. Under the Flanagan administration, we discussed that we had to do something with the Harbor Mall, but we really couldn't wrap our arms around doing things there because it was in different ownership. It was only towards the latter part of the Flanagan administration where ownership changed, and we actually, if you recall, we actually had that site identified for a casino. And we had a bunch of conversations on it. That fell by the wayside.
I remember that. I remember all that talk.
That was a very controversial project, but we had Foxwoods, and the site proved to be too small. So anyway, and then the Flanagan administration came to an end. Sutter came in, and that still remains a priority for development. So I reached out to Market Basket directly, spoke to the family that owns Market Basket, and had a meeting down here, invited them to Fall River, invited them to take a look at the site, and they actually liked the site. But the site was owned by another person, another entity. So we then had to introduce Market Basket to this other entity, put together a deal where Market Basket could purchase a portion of the site, construct its own facility, which is it's a 90,000 square foot facility, and then the other entity would build out the balance of the site with Market Basket as the anchor. So we put all the parties together, went through some back and forth negotiations, because these things are always, there's a lot of moving pieces, there's a lot of details, everybody wants to get the best deal for them, so there's a lot of positioning, there's a lot of, negotiating. Finally, at the end of the day, we were able to get it all ironed out, and then put everybody in a place where they were agreeable, and the construction began last fall. Fall of, it was during the election, so was that fall of
Election
15?
15.
Right, so Sutter was still in office at that point. The announcement began, the announcement was in the fall, construction actually began in 16. And so now here we are in July of 17, and we're looking for a grand opening, probably sometime in September or October.
Right, there's gonna be a whole mall. The mall is different from other malls, right?
Yeah, it's so the new trend in shopping is outside malls, so that you don't have that interior space anymore.
Yeah.
So if you look at Rentham, if you look at some of these other places, all the storefronts are on the outside. People walk along the sidewalks and then they enter into the stores.
Like Foxborough.
Like Foxborough, like Patriot Place, like Legacy Place, and all these other places. That's the new model. So now you have an investment that's representing $100 million worth of private sector investment. It's going to help create between 800 to 900 full and part-time jobs. It's really taking what I would consider a derelict site, and it was completely knocked down, but for some of the steel, and it's you're going to have a new state-of-the-art shopping facility along with a Market Basket, which I tell people, I hear more compliments. I hear an equal amount, if not more compliments, about bringing Market Basket to Florida than I do Amazon. Yeah. And the reason that I hear those compliments is based upon the fact that it's no secret that shopping at Market Basket will save people 20% in comparison to other shopping food market outlets.
Yeah, Market Basket's a good place to shop.
So
I've been to places outside Fall River, and I would go a lot more if it was in Fall River.
So let's put this. Let's say that you're spending $100 a week on groceries, in another store.
Yeah.
And you're getting that same amount of groceries for $80 a week. So now you're saving $20 per week. Okay, you multiply that out over a year, that's more than $1,000 a year in savings to you. That's money in your pocket, right? So that's actually money that's going into your pocket that you can spend for rent, for gas, for education, for clothes, for your car, whatever you want to do. So there's a real savings there. So people for years have said, we need to get a Market Basket, we need to get a Market Basket. And so finally we were able to get it. And I think now you're seeing, the Market Basket, South Coast Place development taking place. We also bringing in a Starbucks. People wanted a Starbucks. So as part of our negotiations with them, we really impressed upon them that they had to go out and recruit a Starbucks, which they did. excuse me, you have 11 screen state-of-the-art theater that's going to be located there. You know, we didn't have any movie theaters within the city. Now we will. We'll have 11 screens that are going to be state-of-the-art. And now what you're starting to see as a result of this project taking place, you're starting to see land across the street being repositioned and redeveloped. So where the Shaw's Marketplace was, you're going to see a whole new development scheme there. You're going
In the north end?
No, in the south end.
Oh, okay, I know what you mean.
Shaw's has been closed for a number of years there. So now
I know what you mean.
that property is going to be all repositioned. You're going to see other properties around there being developed for, I'm not sure if it's public or not, so I won't say it, but some other chain restaurant types that are going to go there. And then just a stone's throw away, right over the border in Tiverton, you're going to see the Twin River Casino.
Right.
So that portion of the south end has gone from
mediocre,
a sleeping giant to now a roaring lion, right? So you have all this activity taking place.
Right, we have all these great things coming into the city, and that's what people should be focused on. What all this positive we have coming in, and
you know, it's like I said, you know, it's a good time to be celebrating our successes as opposed to fighting with each other.
Right, and I just want to make one statement on that, which I never got. Why break something? Why fix something that doesn't need to be broken? And why change something after? Why change an economic driving force in our city right after we just had a major victory because of that group? And I just want to get into one more point.
Sure.
And a lot of people are coming after FROED and supporting what's going on about you guys leaving overdue payments, which you guys denied that you had.
The rent payments?
Right.
Yeah. So let me help clarify that. So,
yeah, that's why I brought it up.
So in the years, there's been years where FROED has had a license with the city. The city can't lease property unless they go through an RFP. So they give you what they call a license, which is an annual license that can be renewed for 2-3 years. In the years where OED actually paid rent to the city, the appropriation from the federal government through CDA was actually increased to offset the rent.
Okay.
So in those years where we paid rent, our CDBG allocation may be $370,000 or $380,000 or $350,000, and $37,000 of that money would go to the city for payment of rent. Our position has always been, and you know, other mayors can testify to this, that every time they asked us to pay rent, I said, look, it doesn't make sense for us to pay rent here. We own the Cherry and Webb building. I'd rather put $37,000 of money in a building that we own as opposed to paying rent here. It's only a half a block away.
Yeah.
So why would I pay rent when I could go to a building we own and put the money in that building? I said, however, if you increase our CDBG allocation, it'll be like a pass-through. We don't need that money, so we'll take that money and pay the city with it. So that's historically how it's been done. So now this particular administration is asking for us to pay 3 years of back rent. Unfortunately, we didn't have any license agreements for any of those 3 years. So even if I wanted to pay the city rent, I didn't have a piece of paper that would allow me to pay rent. Yeah. So from an audit perspective, if I made a $37,000 payment to the city of Fall River, and we're audited each year, the audit would say, well, what's this payment for? And I'd say, well, it's for rent. Well, do you have a lease or do you have a license? And I'll say, well, no. Then they'll say, well, why'd you pay it? I would say, well, because they want us to pay it. That would be an audit finding. I can't pay rent without a lease or a license. So for 3 years, we've had no lease or license because the previous two administrations understood that when we're in government sense, we're actually helping provide a public service as well. So they didn't charge us rent. They didn't increase our CDBG budget so that rent could be paid. So it was all, we're all there, or actually they did increase it, but we gave the money back to them because we didn't have a license.
Right.
So for them to say that we owe rent is something that we vehemently disagree with.
Is that why there's court hearings?
That's why we'll go to court, because, you know, one thing that we need to ensure, because we are a lending entity, credibility is very important to us.
Right.
So we, you know, it's not a good sign to the public if we appear not to be paying rent and we're loaning other people money
Right.
and expect repayment.
That makes sense.
It makes so we will never acquiesce to a rent payment when at such time we have the firm belief that it's not due because there was no license or lease in place. So now we've moved out of government center. We are in the building that we own. We're in a cherry web building.
Right.
Rather than paying rent to the city, we're putting money into the building that we own, which...
So you're happier where you are now?
Yeah, it's just from a business perspective, it just makes more sense. That's like you owning a house that you don't live in, and then you're leasing this apartment, and the landlord comes over and says, I want you didn't pay me for the last 3 years, even though we didn't have a rental agreement.
Yeah.
I want you to pay me these last 3 years. You'd say, why would I pay you? I could just go to the house that I own.
So that makes sense.
So that's what's occurring now.
Now you're just trying to save your credibility, which
and now so they keep
been.
delaying the court case, and it is what it is. And I'm actually, I'm a little disappointed that the court case keeps getting delayed. I'd rather have our day in court.
Well, I would like to thank you for coming on the show. One more reason I made the show was to learn, and I learned a lot about FROED and how it worked for me today. And I'd like to thank you for coming on.
My pleasure.
And for our next episode, we will be having current city councilor and mayoral candidate Richard Cabaceres. And I'd like to thank everyone for watching. Thank you.